Chapter 12 The Mo Quadrant. "Are you sure this will work?" Allie whispered as we raced along the back wall of the dining building. "No," I shot back. I don't know." The moon was a ghastly blur under the cloud cover, but we could see Cass just ahead of us, pacing a precise path out of camera range. "This way," he said. I patted my pocket nervously. In it were 2 shoelaces I'd taken from a pair of spare shoes in my closet and a large rock. I was shaking with fear. They were counting on my part of the escape plan, but my idea seemed borderline idiotic. "Okay, stay near the wall and get to the fire escape of Building D," Cass said. We ran into the darkness, careful of the lone guard and camera and anything else that might give us away. Cass led us to Building D, a brick structure set all by itself away from the main campus. Just above us hung a retractable fire escape. Marco reached up and grabbed the bottom rung. His backpack was stuffed with supplies, but on his shoulders it seemed weightless. "Isn't someone going to hear this?" he said. "I use WD-40, Cass whispered, as Marco lowered the ladder in silence. He added, "So listen up, guys. Here's what we do when we get to the top." "Aren't you going with us?" Allie said. Cass shrugged. "I have this thing about heights." Marco grabbed Cass by the waist, slung him over his shoulder, and climbed the ladder. "Don't look down," he advised. Allie and I followed. We made our way across the rooftop, stepping lightly. As we passed a small skylight, I glanced down. The place was whirling with mechanical life. A rack of servers beeped and flickered. Laptop screens shone with Karai Institute screensavers. No people. Marco and Allie were crouched at the opposite edge of the roof looking down. A few feet away sat Cass, with his back to the parapet. "I think I'm going to be sick," he murmured. "Tell Jack what to do first, Cass," Marco said. "Then hurl." "Okay. See if you can locate the camera," Cass said, jerking his thumb vaguely downward. I glanced over the side of the roof. The camera was there. Fastened to the side of the wall, I calculated the distance downward as I pulled the shoelaces from my pocket. "We're counting on you, MacGyver," Marco said. I gulped. A great big epic fail sign flashed in my head as I took a deep breath. I tied the 2 shoelaces together and then knotted the rock at the bottom. I could sense my 3 partners staring at me, baffled. "Okay, so it's not Mission Impossible," I said. Leaning ever so slightly over the roof, I eyed the maroon camera. I dropped the rock, holding on to the shoelace, trying to gauge the distance. I swung the rock outward and let its momentum carry it backwards toward the lens. Black. It struck dully against the wall, but 2 feet to the left of the camera. "Let me try." Marco grabbed the shoelace from my hand and then pulled up the rock. Holding the lace with his right hand, he used his left to hurl the rock up into the sky. He stood there, watching motionless, until the rock reached the end of its trajectory, and the string snapped it back. It hit the lens dead center, sending a spray of glass and plastic to the ground. My jaw dropped open. It had worked. "Good thinking, Marco," Allie said. "Marco," I repeated. "It was my idea." Oops. Wrong page. "Get down," Allie whispered. "That was loud. What if the guard heard it?" We ducked behind the parapet next to Cass, our breaths puffing wispily in the cool humidity. I listened for a car, an opening, door, a voice. Nada. "My knees are locked," Cass complained. After a moment, I peered over the top. "Coast is clear. Let's book." "My knees are locked," Cass complained. "At least you're not speaking backward," Allie said. Marco yanked Cass over his shoulders again and led us back down the fire escape. We ran around the entrance under the remains of the camera. The door to the building had a card swiper that glowed red. "You're doing great, Brother Jack," Marco said. "Now use that card I stole from the god. It gives access to all the buildings." I fished the stolen card out of my pocket and swiped it. The little light went from red to green, and Marco pushed the door open. We raced inside. Allie tapped on a touchpad and a screen glowed to life. Welcome to the Karai Institute Security Matrix. Please insert finger for print matching. My goodness. Oh, great, Cass said. You guys should have known about this, I hissed. We did. Allie pulled out a flash drive. To a computer, a fingerprint is a set of data, zeros and ones like everything else. I managed to get into the stored ID database and download Torquin's finger ID. The system will automatically upload it and conclude that he put his index finger on the pad. She inserted the drive and the screen changed to a KI wallpaper with a new flashing message. Hello, almighty savior of all things fluffy and fierce. That's Torquin's welcome message, Marco said. He has an odd idea of his own personal mission. Allie's fingers flew over the keyboard. The screen began flashing complex sequences of circuits. Cafeteria, library, sewage. No sewage pipes, Cass protested. I'm afraid of heights and depths. Allie smacked the keyboard. Here's the security fence, but they'll only let me access one quadrant at a time. How do we know which is the right one to pick? I asked. The one that doesn't get us killed, Allie replied. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo was a quadrant that went straight past Bagad's house. He lived behind the library in the little gingerbread cottage that was like something out of Hansel and Gretel. All the lights were on inside. We can't do this, Cass whispered. He's snoring, Marco remarked. I can't even hear us. We managed to slip by one at a time, crouching below an open window. Cass was the last. He was frozen at the edge of the house. He said, his eyes narrowing for a sneeze. Oh no, Marco murmured. Please no. Hold it in, Allie whispered. Choo! We all went stiff. From inside Professor Bagad's cottage came a sniffling sound. Then a honk. He was still snoring. Marco dove for Cass, grabbed him by the shoulder, and pulled him past the window. We headed for the jungle, running through a small yard and then an open, grassy field. Allie found a well-trampled path into the underbush. After a dozen yards, she stopped. There, she said, pointing to what looked like a small sapling. Careful. The disabled electric filaments were hanging like cobwebs. As Allie bounded into the jungle, Marco escorted Cass by the arm. Okay, Brother Cass, he said. You're the navigation guy. Lead the way. Cass took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a moment. Then he began walking tentatively to the right. This way. And if you see something, say something. Allie and I followed close behind, with Marco bringing up the rear. His backpack clunked as he walked, and for the first time he looked uncertain. I wish I had my basketball, he murmured. I feel more comfortable with my basketball. The memory of this jungle sickened me. The vines lashed just as sharply as they had the day before. The roots caught just as tightly, but in the darkness it was 10 times worse. We had only the oculid light of the moon, and soon the canopy blocked even that. Through the underbush, I could practically feel Cass shaking. He sounded like a GPS voice on a short circuit. Go left here, I think. Are you okay? I asked him. I hate the dark, he said. Okay, head for the shadow of that tall, bent tree. As we walked, no one wanted to talk much. The bugs swarmed all over us, and we stayed busy slapping them away. This pathway to the left looks right, Cass said. I think. What do you mean, you think? Marco called out. I thought you were perfect. Not when I'm nervous, Cass said. Can we slow down? Allie asked. I'm out of breath. If we go any slower, we'll be going backward. Yeah, horsefly, Marco said, slapping his forehead. Breathing hard, Allie sat on a flat tree stump, feeling a little lightheaded. Allie stood over her, waving his arms in a regular rhythm to keep away the flies. Hey, you just need rest, sister. Allie, he said. Soon we'll be out of this horror hole. The night I disappeared, my mom was going to make a big lasagna. I'm hoping she froze it, because you're all invited over. I nodded. My dad was cutting short a business trip to see me. He's probably worried out of his mind. Allie was bent over, her head between her legs. We had to hunch down to hear her. Sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me, but this feels better, she said. After a few moment, blah, 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 blah. After a moment, she continued in a soft voice. My mom, she knows I'm alive. I can just feel it. We have this bond. I'm worried about my dad, though. He's older. The stress is probably killing him. Mine probably hasn't noticed, Marco said. It's the middle of football season. He'll figure it out after the Super Bowl. I just hope he's not defrosting the lasagna. How about your parents, Cass? Allie asked. Cass was heading further up the path. We have to go this way. Look who took his brave pills, Marco said. Hey, wait up, Davy Crockett. Allie's injured. It's okay, Allie insisted. I'm ready. As she stood up, I looked at what she's been sitting on. A stump. Guys, I said, does that look weird to you? A flat stump in the middle of the jungle? I mean, trees don't shear themselves flat. Someone had to have done this. Marco took a flashlight from his pack and shone it on the stump. Dude, somebody carved this, Marco said. Cass wandered over and leaned in. As he ran a finger over the grooves, a strangled scream rang out from the woods. Allie. We turned and ran. She was about 20 feet ahead of us, standing rigid, her hands to her mouth. I did not see that. I'm feeling sick. My eyes are playing a trick. I did not see that, she was muttering. See what? Asked Cass. Allie swallowed. Nothing. Probably a possum, or a woodchuck, or an armadillo, or a hyena, or whatever the heck they have in a jungle. It's just, in the dark, it looked like a panther or something, only with a hog's face and teeth. I froze. A hog's face? Marco put his arm around her. Hey, it's okay. Lots of stress here tonight. We're almost there, right, Brother Cass? Should be about 20 minutes, Cass said. Allie nodded, and she and Marco fell in behind Cass once again. I stayed close, trying to keep my peripheral vision open, but all I could think about was my reoccurring dream of the chase and the explosion and the earthquake and the beast I had seen so often in my imagination, the hose-beaked Vermonsky. The creature with a body like a beast of prey, a snout like a hog, and teeth. We trudged on until I felt I had no unbitten skin left. It seemed as if we'd gone a whole night. The moon was still high, but dulled by clouds that had moved in suddenly. Before long, the cool sea breeze stiffened up. It tickled my lungs, and I began to cough. The ground beneath us was growing sandier. I could hear the crashing of waves now. Cass stopped, and his head cocked to the left. A Curie, he said. We made it. I could see a dull licking of whitish gold ahead of us through the branches. It was the dim, defiant reflection of the now nearly obscured moon against a body of water. A wave thundered onto the shore, and one lonely seagull cawed, and as its silhouette to the faint circle of the moon's remaining light, we all began to run toward the sound. Marco hit the sandy beach and flew into a cartwheel. Allie started dancing but dissolved into a fit of laughter and coughing. There was a faint rotten stench, which I figured to be some washed-up dead fish, but even that seemed sweet. It was the smell of freedom. As I stumbled forward, my foot caught a root and I fell. I didn't care. I rolled to my feet, a laugh tearing itself upward from my throat. In the distance, I could see a small wooden dock with the shadow of a boat rising and falling on the water. The soft creak of its mooring ropes against the hull was the only sound, until Cass's shriek pierced the night. Directly to my right, "Get this thing off me!" he shouted.